wrong move and Bella's throat, it's gone. Y'all literally just went through a harrowing life or death experience. Go dance, have some fun, drink some punch, have fun with your vampire boyfriend. So as you can see, we're filming another reading vlog, and y'all, the time has finally come to read Twilight by Stephenie Meyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, her.
I was supposed to film and upload this vlog back in December, but there was just so much going on that I just flopped completely and decided to push it to January. And by the way, it is January 1st, so happy new year. I hope you guys had a safe, happy, and healthy day. And here's to 2023. Hopefully this year is successful and just good to all of us. I decided to kick off January with Twilight because I really need to get this book read and again get this video up because I told you guys I was going to do it, and a few of you were actually really excited for me to read this book and for me to upload the vlog. So I just appreciate y'all's support so much. I didn't think anyone was gonna care, especially because this book has been out for like 15 years. So I really did not think anyone was going to care, but appreciate y'all. So before I dive into this, I just wanted to say that I actually started Twilight last year, so back in 2022. I think it was during the summer, maybe? Or was it the winter? I'm not sure, but I started Twilight last year and my library had like 1 million copies available. So I had no issues taking this book out and renewing my loan and all of that stuff. But I just kept getting annoyed with myself because I was not prioritizing this book at all. And I just kept letting my loan run out. So I was just getting annoyed, and I just also felt like I was putting unnecessary pressure on myself to like rush and read this before the loan expires. And again, my library has 1 million copies of this book, similar to I think every other library. But I still just prefer to have my own physical copy so that way I can read this on my own time and go from there. And because this book is chunky, I just did not want to be rushed, like I said. So I decided to buy the box set on Amazon. I will leave it linked down below if it's still available. This is called the White Collection. I don't think it's a special edition. Maybe it is, but I just know it's called the White Collection, and I just love the aesthetic of these Twilight books versus the other ones. I don't know why. It's just something about this color scheme that's very calming. Like I said, I started this last year, and I can't remember what chapter I got up to. I'm just going to start over and start from chapter 1 and go from there, just because I really want to make sure I have the full experience, and that way I'm giving you guys my actual thoughts on this book and everything that takes place in it. I'm not sure how this vlog is going to be structured, if I'm going to have spoilers or not. I will obviously label it once I edit this video, but for right now, we're just gonna go with the flow. I will check in with you guys when I get to that 100 page mark and talk to you about my thoughts. Actually the next day. It's January 2nd, 3:15 in the afternoon, and I actually got to the 100 page mark of Twilight last night. I decided to just come back on today and share all of my thoughts with you so far because I have quite a few. But before we get into it, I just wanted to show you guys my robe. Isn't it cute? Like, y'all see this pink? I actually got this from Victoria's Secret, and I got it in the mail yesterday, and I'm obsessed. No one asked, but like, I just had to show you guys because it's too cute. But anyways, getting back to the actual point of this video. Twilight, yes. So like I said, I have some thoughts. We're gonna have to talk about Bella for sure. I already know that Bella is a point of contention for so many people when it comes to this saga and this series because she's just a funny and unserious character to me. So we're gonna get into it. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about before we really get into like the character analysis and breakdown, what is with Stephenie Meyer's incessant use of the word pale and white?
Can someone explain that to me?
I understand historically, I guess, that vampires are technically like very pale and iridescent and things like that, but I just feel like she's constantly harping on the fact that like Edward and Bella and other kids at this school are very, very white, very porcelain. And it's just very bizarre to me because I feel like the way she's emphasizing it and harping on it, it just, I don't know, it gives me the ick. I don't really like it. So that was one of the first things I had to say that I noticed right off the bat that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was just kind of like, okay, do we have to keep going on and on about that? So that does make me a little bit nervous for the other books in the series, just because I know that there are indigenous characters that get introduced into Twilight, i.e. Taylor Lautner's character Jacob. So I am nervous about how she's going to handle his character and his like family and just the indigenous culture overall. Another thing that I wanted to say, despite me getting turned off by some of the language and wording in this book, I'm actually entertained. I flew through this book and got to page 110 so quickly because it's just so entertaining and so addictive. At certain points, it does remind me of Wattpad and like fan fiction and just kind of what you see on there. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the characters because I just gotta talk about Bella. I have to talk about Bella because like I said, she is so fucking unserious and it's so funny to me. I feel like if I would have read this back in the day when it was really popular and it first came out and I was a teenager, I feel like I probably would have had a lot of conflicting feelings towards Bella because I can definitely see why a lot of people don't like her character and why a lot of people feel as though she's very annoying. I actually don't find her annoying. I find her very funny because you can tell that she thinks that she is so different and so like, I'm not like other girls, but she is like every other girl. She's like every other girl. She's like every other person. And that's what gets me. I was talking to my boyfriend about this book and the characters because he has never read Twilight, but he watched a few of the movies here and there and he cannot stand Twilight. Like he really cannot stand the production of the movies. He also did not like Kristen Stewart in the role as Bella and like it's a whole thing. So he really does not like Twilight and every time I talk to him about this, he rolls his eyes. And again, I think it's all hilarious, but I was saying to him that Bella gives me Jughead from Riverdale vibes. Like y'all remember that clip that went viral from Riverdale like a year or two ago where Cole Sprouse's character Jughead was like, I'm a weirdo, I'm weird, I'm a freak, I don't fit in.
In case you haven't noticed, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. I don't fit in and I don't want to fit in.
But in reality, he fit in and like everybody accepted him and like welcomed him with open arms for the most part. That's exactly what Bella is giving. She acts like people are all out to get her and that she's just so different and so broody and weird and awkward and just like and skittish and just like not like everybody else, when in reality she is, like I said. But also everybody at her school has welcomed her with open arms. She literally has 3 different guys falling and tripping over themselves to try to take her out on a date or be with her romantically. And I just think it's so funny because I'm like, girl, where is the disconnect? How are we as a reader, and I guess if you're watching the movies, I'm obviously not sure if the movies are super spot on, but it's like, how are we as the readers and we as the viewers seeing that like you are very well liked, but you can't see that? I get that she spends a lot of time in her head, but I need her to wake up. I need her to wake up and like get out of her head and stop daydreaming and stop being so paranoid and really look around her. That's the thing about Bella. Like she is just very paranoid and very skittish. And also going off of that, I definitely think Kristen Stewart probably portrayed Bella very well. I do plan on watching the movies after I finish each book, but learning more about Bella's character and seeing how skittish and awkward and just like broody she is, I definitely could see Kristen Stewart playing that role very well. And I actually watched the movie Speak when I was in school. For those of you who do not know, Speak is about this girl who is in high school. She ends up getting sexually assaulted one night, and this traumatic incident has obviously caused her to withdraw and isolate herself and really try to figure out how she's going to move forward because she can't decide if she wants to speak up and talk about her experiences and press charges against this other student, or if she wants to keep it to herself and just try to move on as best as she can. So that's essentially the story, and again, like finding your voice and like speaking up against injustices and things like that. And Kristen Stewart was actually casted as the female lead in that movie. She did such a great job of really portraying that skittish, shy, to herself, withdrawn character, and so I definitely feel like it makes sense for her to play Bella. I know a lot of people did not like Kristen Stewart as Bella for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I feel like after all of this is said and done, I'm gonna have to go look on the old Reddit forums and things like that to see why people really did not like Kristen Stewart as Bella. But I have heard growing up that like a lot of people just did not like her in the role. But again, getting to learn Bella in the book, I could see why Kristen Stewart was cast. I don't really have any strong opinions about Kristen Stewart. I genuinely don't. I thought she did a great job in Speak. And I feel like she probably did her best in this movie because I have seen bits and pieces of Twilight, and to be honest, the production quality, not good. But either way, I'm not offended by Kristen Stewart playing Bella. In terms of Robert Pattinson, that's his name, right? Robert Pattinson playing Edward, I don't see it yet. I don't know why, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not envisioning it, and I'm not sure why. Maybe as I get further into the book, I'll start to see like, oh yeah, I could see Robert Pattinson playing Edward. But right now, I'm not envisioning it. I don't know why. So I feel like that's a great segue into Edward's character. And I think Edward is actually very funny and like kind of charming. probably weird to say that, but I think he's actually kind of charming, especially when it comes to like him interacting with Bella. He's like actually very like sweet and caring and gentle towards her. He tried to save her life, and Bella looks at that as a personal attack, and I don't understand why. She looks at everything that Edward does and says to her and in general as a personal attack, and I just think it's so funny because he realizes it and us as a reader realizes it, and so he really plays into that and like tries to do anything to piss her off and rile her up because he knows the reaction he's going to get out of her. It makes me high-pitched cackle like a hyena every single time. Like, for example, there was a part in the book where I think her and Edward were having a conversation and Edward said something to irritate her, I don't know what, but she ended up like storming off to her car to try to hurry up and like get out of the parking lot and go home. And when she like backed out and tried to like hurry up, Edward cut right in front of her and just like stopped and basically held her and other students up in the line. And I don't know why I found that so fucking hilarious, but I found that so fucking hilarious. It's obviously all harmless, like fun and games. Bella takes it so seriously and again takes it as a personal attack that it just makes me laugh. She's such a dramatic character, and like same. I too can have my moments where I'm very dramatic, especially as a teenager. Oh, I know I was a drama queen, but I just think that Edward and Bella's dynamic is just very funny, and it's keeping me entertained, and it's making me want to actually like read the book and devour it. So my goal for this is to read at least 100 pages of this every single night. I started this yesterday, which was Sunday, January 1st, and so I am going to try to read, like I said, 100 pages a night. Hopefully I will wrap this up by Friday night. Not sure when I'm going to check back in and give you guys my thoughts. Like I said, we will see how this goes, but as of right now, those are all of the thoughts that I have so far. Not too much, just vibes, but I'm having a good time reading this nonetheless. So yeah. I need to get a new tripod. I hope that stays. Anyways, hey y'all. So it's actually Sunday, January 8th, 5 p.m. and it's been a few days since I last checked in with you regarding my thoughts on Twilight, and that's honestly because life got in the way. Also, I just feel like I haven't had too much to say about this book. Like, for the most part, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a great time reading it, and I totally understand why the girls went feral back in the day when this first debuted, because Edward is very charming, which is very on brand for a vampire, but I get it, girls, I get it. I don't really have that many thoughts, like I said, but I will give you something to talk about. Like I was saying, Edward is very charming, and I do think that the romance between him and Bella is very endearing. Now, I will say in the beginning, they did give me the ick a little bit, because I just couldn't understand the immediate obsession between the two and why they were so quick to latch on to each other and just be, again, so wrapped up into one another without really knowing anything about the other, and also getting weird vibes from the other, etc, etc. As I get further and further into the story, I feel like it does start to make sense. Technically, Edward and Bella, I guess, could be considered as like outcasts, or feeling like they're outcasts and feeling like they don't really belong anywhere, even though, like I said, Bella to me is just like everybody else, in my opinion. But you know, we're gonna let her think that she is different and a unicorn, so we're gonna let her think that. So in this conversation and in this context, both her and Edward are considered outcasts, or at least in their eyes are considered outcasts, and they feel like they don't really fit in or belong to a specific group. They feel like they're just kind of on their own in a way, but I feel like they have found solace. And community in one another. It also makes even more sense for Edward too, because he is not able to enact his powers on Bella the way that he is with other people. So of course that's going to make anybody curious or interested in someone. I just wanted to call that out because, like I said, their obsession was giving me the ick in the beginning, but now I find it kind of endearing and cute. I know that sounds so problematic and that sounds so messed up, but
I have read worse.
And I plan on reading worse this year because I'm looking to get more into dark romance, and you guys already know the taboo and messed up side of dark romances, so we're not even gonna get into all of that. But like I said, I find it cute and endearing now, to the point where I actually did tab this book. I know, who am I ordered all of these tabs and annotation supplies because I was running so low. It was getting a little bit unserious. I literally had like 5 tabs left, and so I needed to re-up, and I'm happy that I did, because who would have thought that I would have actually wanted to tab something in this book? Not me, I'll tell you that. And of course I had to make it match because that's just how I am, but I don't really have anything else going on in here. The only thing that I have here under my annotation key is this tab, this red colored tab, and it says romantic / swoon worthy. But I just genuinely love the romantic moments between both Edward and Bella, and you can tell that their story is going to shape up into an epic love story, and I'm ready and I'm seated. I cannot wait to get further into the saga to see how all of this unfolds, and to also see how this love triangle between her, Jacob, and Edward is going to be, because at this point I don't see it for Jacob. Like, I really don't see it for this man. I don't know how he's going to be able to infiltrate his way into Bella's heart when Edward has that shit on lock. You know what I mean? Especially with him being so charming and gentle with Bella and already having that possessiveness over her. I just don't know how Jacob's even going to be able to get time with Bella, but obviously all will be revealed in the next couple of books. But I am really excited to see how that drama is going to unfold. Right now we're going to go back to Edward and Bella. I might have to stand them. I don't know. I just have to say that the chapter where they go to the meadow, that was beautiful. This takes me to my next point of Stephenie Meyer's writing. We need to talk about this because I have conflicting thoughts about her writing style. One minute I'm cringed out at some of the dialogue and just some of the actions that she makes the characters do, and also just little red herrings and foreshadowing is kind of too on the nose for me. But there are some chapters, specifically the chapter where they go to the meadow, that are just so atmospheric and just suck you in that I am obsessed. And so I don't understand how to rate her writing. Like, I really don't, because like I said, on one hand it's cringe, but then on the next hand she does a great way with really sucking you into the story and making it super immersive and making it so atmospheric. I genuinely felt like I was in a haze or a daze when I was reading the chapter where Bella and Edward were spending time together in the meadow. I just thought, like I said, it was so romantic and so refreshing and airy and light, and I just really enjoyed it. I am living for this whole forbidden romance / star-crossed lovers trope. You guys have heard me say multiple times that I am a sucker for a star-crossed lovers trope to show up in media. So whether that's books, movies, TV, whatever, I just love that trope. Now I understand that throughout the saga Bella's gonna go through some transformations and we're not gonna get that whole star-crossed lovers trope anymore, but for right now that's what it's giving, and I'm here for it. Another thing that I enjoy is, of course, the forbidden romance between both Edward and Bella. One wrong move and Bella's throat, it's gone, it's done. So I'm just really curious to see how this is all going to unfold and how Edward is going to control his urges and all of that type of stuff. Well, those are really all of my thoughts that I have so far. Like I said, it's more so just vibes and feelings that I have right now, more so than like critique and critical thoughts. Sometimes you just need books like this where they are just pure escapism and you're just there for the ride and you're having fun, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm having a great time reading this book. Hey y'all, so as you can see, it's a new day and it's actually Tuesday, January 10th at 4:10 p.m. and I'm actually working right now, but I decided to take a little break because I needed to give you guys my final thoughts on Twilight. So I decided to take a few days to gather my thoughts because I told you guys in my last reading vlog that I have a tendency to want to update you guys in real time, and I need to stop doing that because I noticed that when I go back and edit, I don't make a lick of sense. Everything is all over the place. My thoughts are so scatterbrained, and that's because I'm clearly on an adrenaline high after finishing the book. So I decided to take a few days to get myself together, and now we're here. So everybody clap. But before we get started, I don't know what is going on, but I feel like as my Invisalign treatment progresses, my lisp gets worse. So if you notice me enunciating a little bit more or slowing down my speech, that's why. I feel like this treatment has really humbled me in so many different ways because I have always been a fast talker and fast speaker. That's always been me ever since I was a kid. I would always get comments from my teachers and people telling me that like I need to slow down. And so I feel like this is finally the time for me to actually like work on that and slow down and not act like I need to hurry up and get everything out. I just wanted to preface and say that. The second thing that I wanted to say is if you notice any noise in the background, it's because I have my heater on because it is really cold here in Philly. So I'm so sorry if that is loud. I'm going to try to talk as loudly as I can, but like I can't turn it off because I'm too cold. I'm sorry. I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a word dump. It's not going to be super structured because I just have so many different thoughts and so many different feelings about this book. But the one thing that I had to call out first and foremost is that I felt like you could really feel the age gap between Bella and Edward. And it was kind of jarring at times because I felt like there were so many moments where Edward would say something that made complete sense, or you could read between the lines and clearly understand what he was trying to say to Bella, but she would get so dramatic and not understand what he was saying. Like, I understand that she's a teenager technically and like she's still going through the motions, but there were just too many moments where Edward would say something to her and it made perfect sense. Like, you did not have to think super critically or deeply to understand what he was really trying to say to her, but for some reason she would turn it into a big thing and not get what this man was saying. And I'm like, girl, what is going on? Like, what are we doing? One thing that I did enjoy though was the baseball scene. I thought that that scene was iconic. I thought it was iconic. I only watched bits and pieces of Twilight and I vividly remember the baseball scene in the movie. So to actually like read about it and really understand what played out and why it was a turning point, oh, I ate it up. I ate it up. I loved the baseball scene in this book. So I just had to say that because, like, come on, it's synonymous, I feel like, with Twilight at this point, what that scene represents and what it meant for Bella and Edward's relationship specifically, especially because it led us into this suspenseful, heart-pumping storyline that I ate up. I just had to give Stephenie Meyer her 10s for the baseball scene because I enjoyed it and I really liked the way that she used that to take the story in a different direction, because I felt like the middle of this book was kind of lulling a bit. It's really just vibes and romance right now, which I'm not mad at, but I was like, are we gonna get a little bit more of a plot? I still had like 100 and something pages left. Is the rest of this book just going to be them booed up? I was wrong. And so, you know what, like I said, I have to give Stephenie Meyer her 10 for that because it really flipped the story on its head and made it into a suspenseful tale. Like I said, going off of that a little bit more, I just felt like that whole like storyline made me realize that maybe fantasy romance isn't all that bad. Maybe I really do need to check out the genre more and just really spend some time to figure out what I like and what I'm looking for, because I had so much fun reading this book when we got to that part of the story. Like, I was already enjoying myself, but I was really like into the story and sucked in and enthralled and wanted to find out how this was all going to end once we got to that point. So I love a good romantic suspense tale, I really do, and I just know that fantasy romance has a lot of that. I've never been a werewolf or vampire stan. Like, I just did not care, nor did I understand why people were so invested in vampire stories in particular. But like, now I see where y'all coming from. Now I see the light. I see the light and I see the intrigue and I see the appeal. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. But just know Taya might be entering her fantasy romance era. I'm not saying it's going to be full force, like knee deep. And then a little bit more on the suspense. It really did help me understand the hype and the lore of Twilight, because like I said, I wasn't really understanding why you guys were going feral and like frothing at the mouth over this saga. But once we got to that point, I was like, oh, okay, so that's the lore of Twilight. That's why people are so interested in it and why people are so invested in Bella and Edward as characters, because they really do have a lot of high stakes shit going on. Like, there's a lot going on with them and within their world. So I understand the hype is what I'm trying to say. This entire time I was just waiting for Edward to black out and go berserk and like potentially hurt Bella, and I thought that that was going to be the catalyst for this whole saga. To know that it wasn't even Edward that we had to worry about, and it was more specifically just like other vampires and other entities that are around the Cullens and Forks in general, that had me shook. I was not expecting James's character at all. I virtually knew nothing about Twilight. I've only seen bits and pieces of the movie, like I said, and I've seen memes, of course, but I never fully understood them. When James was introduced in the book, I was like, ooh, something's about to go down. I don't know what, but something's about to go down, and it went down. But the one thing that I will say that I found very uninteresting and just not as impactful about James's character was when he gave the monologue before he was about to attack Bella. Even Bella brought this up in the book when he was giving his whole monologue and his whole villain origin story and explaining to Bella why he was actually after her and all of this other stuff. She even brought up and said now he's giving his monologue, and honestly it's not as impactful as you might think it would be, which I agree with, because at the end of the day, Bella is a human, he's a vampire. Duh, it's not a fair fight. So it's like you giving us this whole big speech and acting like it's this huge crescendo. It just didn't give what he thought it was going to give. Like, it didn't. I was not moved. I did not move out of my seat. I was just kind of like, okay, can we fast forward to the actual like action packedness now, and like you and Bella actually tussling in that dance studio? Like, can we get to that? And usually I love the villain reveal. I love when villains give their monologue and their origin story and explain their grand master plan. But when it came to James, I just did not find it compelling, because like I said, it wasn't even a fair fight. His character was insane, and when him and Bella were tussling in that studio, I was really shook and scared for my girl, because I was like, ooh, are you gonna make it out of this okay? I don't know. Obviously I knew that she was going to make it out alive, but he really did a number on her. Like, oh, that was a little much, especially for a YA book. And a YA book written back in 05, 06, I was like, oh wow, I did not know that Stephenie Meyer was going to really go there and get that brutal, but she did. Now we're going to move into Bella and Edward more specifically, and their relationship and how all of that turned out at the end of this book. So I don't want to say that I thought that they were going to have a happily ever after, because obviously there are like 4 or 5 other books in this saga, so I know it's going to take some time for them to actually get that ending. But for some reason I just really thought that they were going to at least be okay for a little while, or like at least maybe figure out a way to make this work. I understand his reasoning for not wanting to change Bella into a vampire right now, but at the same time it's like, sir, it would solve all of y'all problems. Like, it would solve their problems, at least. Like, just thinking about it at a high level perspective, I just feel like it would just solve a lot of their problems, especially because you can tell that they're not going anywhere. They are truly wrapped up in one another. They are obsessed with each other. I don't know what it's going to take, but it's going to take some true, like, magical, fantastical force to actually pull them apart from one another, or death, obviously. I just assumed that like he would just transform her right then and there, because I just felt like it probably would have made the most sense, especially because he's always worried about her being in danger when it comes to him and other vampires or werewolves or whatever the case is. But I understand that this is a series, so it has to be dragged out. But to be honest, I just feel like this probably could have wrapped up and been a standalone book. It probably could have been. It probably could have been. Maybe we could have got like a second book, or maybe a duology. Maybe not like a standalone book, but maybe a little cute duology. I think maybe could have sufficed. I'm not mad that this is a series. I'm just saying it's something that I noticed that, you know, that was really the only thing that I felt like we just needed to tie up, was her not being a vampire. But you know, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. I'm still going to read the rest of the series and watch all of the movies to get that full 360 experience. But it's just something that I noticed, that I wonder how this would have turned out if this was actually a duology or maybe a trilogy versus like a 4 or 5 parter, you know? Don't get mad, don't get mad. Like I said, I do plan on reading the rest of the series, and I am having fun. I am living, laughing, and loving reading this series, but it's just something that I thought of when I got to the end of the book. Another thing that I have to say and that I really loved was the banter between Bella and Edward, but more specifically Edward's banter. This man is hilarious. I actually laughed out loud at some of the stuff that he said to Bella, because like I said earlier, she would just respond and react in ways that did not make sense, or that was so dramatic that even he would have to stop and be like, Bella, come on girl, come on girl. So the way that he would respond to her is the way that I probably would have responded to her too. Like, for example, when they went to the prom and she didn't know that that's where they were going, Edward was like, well, where did you think we were going? You're dressed up in a ball gown, for God's sake. And I was hollering because he was right. Like, girl, where did y'all think y'all was going? But then she obviously admitted where she thought they were going. But still, it's just like, I don't know. She just really lacked social cues and context clues so much throughout the story. It was painful to read about some of the stuff that she just did not understand or peep when she should have peeped it, in my opinion. And going back to prom, that's another thing too. The storyline when it came to the school, I loved how Stephenie just abandoned that for a while and was just like, school? Bella doesn't know her. I loved that she was like, fuck this. We're just going to focus on these two in a life or death situation and trying to get out of it. So when we got to the part where they were trying to obviously outrun James and outsmart him, I was sitting back thinking to myself, like, Bella's classmates and teachers are probably wondering where the hell she is right now, and where is Edward? But more specifically, where is Bella? Like, girl, you just started. Where are you? Where have you gone? Why are you not showing up to class? And I was just laughing at that. But there were other parts where I truly forgot that they were in high school, and this read as if they were like grown adults or in college or something like that, because of just some of the mature themes that were going on. So this is a very interesting YA book. It's definitely not your typical standard YA book, at least not in my opinion, especially for a 2005 book, not in my opinion, but I still enjoyed this nonetheless. And then the last thing that I wanted to say about Bella, in the midst of all of this, Bella still found a way to make sure that you as the reader knew that she was not like other girls. That is the one thing about her character that truly gets under my skin. And I know that that was a popular archetype for female characters. They didn't want the female MC to be like other girls. They wanted her to be like, you know, one of the guys, or be a little bit more awkward and quirky. I know that there are women and girls that are like that do deviate from societal norms and like the norms that surround femininity and womanhood and girlhood. and that are more like tomboys and stuff like that. Bella just wanted to be different so bad. She wanted it too bad. You are the same as everybody else in your high school. Like I said earlier, she was accepted into that school so quickly, and she literally became friends with some of the most popular people in school on her first day. Like, you're not as offbeat as you might think that you are, like, at least not in my opinion. Now there might be some people that disagree with me, and that's fine. She wasn't as different as she claimed to be. Like, yes, I know Edward told her that she was different, and obviously when it comes to him, she is very different compared to everybody else, but like overall, the way that she reacted, the way that she went about things, it was very cliche. And so for her to still continue to make it seem like she was different from the other girls and that she wasn't like them, and like, I hate wearing this stupid dress with all this tulle and having my makeup done and looking like a Barbie, and it's like, girl, shut up and go to prom. Go to prom with your man and have some fun. That's it. That's all. Y'all literally just went through a harrowing life or death experience. Go dance, have some fun, drink some punch, and have fun with your vampire boyfriend. That's like all I can really say. But all in all, I loved Edward. I thought he was very charming, very charismatic. I loved how funny he was, and like, I can understand why so many of the girlies are like Team Edward, because yeah, he gave what he was supposed to give, in my opinion. Now, am I on Team Edward or Team Jacob? I don't know yet. Obviously, I'm not deep enough in the series yet, but if I had to say it based off of this book, obviously I would be Team Edward. I'm sure I'll understand why Bella is having a hard time trying to figure out her feelings for these two. I know it's going to get messy, it's going to get chaotic, and I'm ready and I'm seated, because she's really in a unique, different, crazy situation trying to choose between a vampire and a werewolf. I just can't get over how funny all of that is. Now we're finally moving on to my end of book thoughts. So what did I think overall about this book? What do I think overall about Stephenie Meyer, her writing, and the hype and the popularity that surrounds Twilight, and why it still has people in a chokehold to this very day? So I think you guys can already tell from my reaction and just certain things that I've said earlier on in this little discussion here. I enjoyed it so much. I love a good romantic suspense tale, and that's exactly what I got with this book once we got towards the end. I just loved how tender and caring and just overall like kind he was to her, and how he wanted to look out for her. Now I do want to at least try to justify my rating and prove to y'all that I'm not that unserious, okay? I just think that if I was more of a fantasy reader and more of a fantasy romance reader, and then I read this book, I'm sure I would be singing a different tune, and I probably would give this book a 2-star. But because I have very minimal experience with the fantasy genre, and then virtually no experience with the fantasy romance genre, so I don't really have anything else to base this off of, or judge this, or compare or contrast this to. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm sure when I start to get more into the genre and I start to find more books that I like, I'm sure I'm going to look back on this book and this video and be like, ooh girl, Twilight really is the blueprint for this type of fantasy romance when it comes to vampires and stuff like that. Pre-Twilight, I don't remember anybody even caring about vampires in that regard. Like, I feel like most people would always look at vampires and werewolves as just like scary beings, like when you think of Dracula and stuff like that. But I feel like this book did really great PR for vampires and the fantasy romance genre, and like monster romances in general. So like, Stephenie Meyer won this round. Obviously, this is not groundbreaking literature. You guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, that I love campy books. I love books that are ridiculous, that are over the top. I'm really not surprised that I ended up enjoying this a lot more than what I thought I was going to. And even though I want to explore more fantasy romances, I still have to figure out a way to truly suspend all of my disbelief, because there were a lot of chapters and scenes that took me out of the story because I kept remembering that Edward was a vampire, and like some of the things were just so silly. I'm really gonna have to try to be more open-minded, I feel like, for this genre, because it requires it. And usually I'm good at suspending disbelief because I read so many thrillers and romances, but for some reason when it comes to fantasy, I'm still having a hard time fully disengaging and like detaching that way. I don't know why that is, but I always find myself wanting to bust out laughing when I read a fantasy book that has talks about monsters and demons and vampires and dragons and all of this stuff, because it's just like, is this really what I'm reading right now? Is this really what's going on? And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just one of those things where like, I need to just be more open-minded and like just sit back and enjoy the ride. I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot, and I am really excited to read the rest of the books in the series and watch the movies finally. I do plan on watching Twilight this weekend. I definitely plan on restarting and finishing the Vampire Diaries now. I actually started the Vampire Diaries, I want to say maybe like 2 years ago, and I was really into it, and then I just fell off. But now after reading this, I want to go back and actually watch the show and finish it. I know some of the problematic things also involved with Vampire Diaries and how they treated Bonnie's character, who is the only black character I think on the show. So I'm not looking forward to that at all, because I really don't want to see how they treat her. But at the same time, I do want to go back and watch the show because I was enjoying the early seasons at the very least. And I'm not one for blood and gore and like all of that type of stuff, but I was really fascinated by the show. I'm also not sure when I'm going to get to Breaking Dawn. I don't want to completely derail from my January TBR, so I'm not sure when I'm actually going to get to that book. Maybe February, maybe March, I don't know. But I do want to finish this series this year. I definitely don't want to drag this out and bring it into 2024. Ugh, even saying that and hearing that right now is like giving me anxiety. But I definitely do want to finish the series this year for sure. Those are all of my thoughts on Twilight. I will pop back in here when I decide to watch the movie, and then we will close out the vlog that way. So I will see you guys in the next couple of clips. So it's actually Sunday, January 15th at 4:07 in the afternoon. And as you can tell by those clips, I finally watched Twilight for the first time ever. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about my thoughts on the movie just because I feel like this vlog is already going to be long enough and I just don't want to dwell on too much. But I had to give y'all something. This movie, not good besties, not good. I am giving it a 4 out of 10. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was very lackluster, and I also felt as though the movie was rushed. I kept telling Marcus that I felt like I was watching this on 1.5 speed, because if you read the book, then you understand that there's a lot of buildup and anticipation and slow burn for a lot of different things when it came to Bella and Edward and just their dynamic, but also just other stuff going on in their personal lives. I feel like, more specifically Bella. Like I said, I just felt like there was more anticipation and build up and slow burn. But when it came to the movie, I just felt like the producers just tried to throw and cram whatever they could into those 2 hours and call it a day. And that's another thing that I don't understand, because it's like, this movie is 2 hours, at least the version that I watched. I think I actually watched the extended version. I can't tell you what exactly about it was extended. I don't know. I just know that the movie that I watched was 2 hours. But I felt like nothing really happened in those 2 hours. It just felt like everything was just rushed and manic, and I didn't like it. And I understand that the movie adaptation is not going to be 100% accurate to the book, and I know they're only going to take elements from the book and put it into the movie, but I just felt like the pacing was off compared to the book. I felt like everybody's performance was pretty much lackluster. It was definitely giving, yes girl, give us nothing. That is exactly what it was giving. The production was just not it. It was not it. Everything just looked off, it felt off, etc, etc. So those are my thoughts on the movie. I did not like it and I am a little bit scared to continue on with the movies. The books, I'm here for. I'm ready, I'm seated. I cannot wait to read New Moon and see what adventure Bella and Edward are gonna have to go on now. But the movies, baby, I don't know. I know I'm gonna have to watch them just because it makes sense, and I feel like it would be sacrilege if I didn't watch them. But to be honest, y'all, I really don't, because if they're anything like the first movie, it's not gonna work. It's not going to work. Those are all of my thoughts on Twilight as a whole. You guys got my thoughts on the book and the movie, and now we are done. We are closing out this vlog once and for all, but I appreciate you rocking with me if you made it all the way to the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me and my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video. And now at the beginning of the video, like I always do, I will see you guys in my next video.